must say, the first part of the introduction, my mother would be proud of, and my father would actually believe it. But the second letter of the introduction, it's obviously true. I'm very complex. Nevertheless, I'm absolutely honored to be here. I'm going to be talking about the appalling levels of basic service delivery in fragile states. This topic is dear to my heart. I grew up in these fragile states. Therefore, I understand the needs of basic services. Things that look like this.
It's coming up, sorry. Please turn it on until now. This is the first slide?
Right. Yeah.
I will turn the slides. I volunteered to do this, so I won't back down.
Sorry about that. Things that look like this. It's an adequate quantity of healthcare education. Thank you. Things that look like this. It's an adequate quantity of healthcare, education, in a range of basic services. How come it's as bad as this in the 21st century? How did we get there? We got there because for the last 40 years, we've been pursuing a fantasy in these fragile states. And that fantasy is to make these fragile states look like the European states in the 1950s. And this basic service delivery were delivered by a monopoly ministry of this and a monopoly ministry of that. For example, Scandinavia. Scandinavia is one of the best systems enough that you can do this. Somalia will never be Scandinavia. Therefore, recognize what the international community did in practice was not to design a better system, but to do the total bypass. For example, in Africa, 90% of basic service are delivered by private sectors and NGOs and a total bypass of the states. So we have the European 1950s fantasy, which the donors are still trying to do, coexisting with a zoo of uncoordinated private sectors and NGOs. So what's the big idea? How can we make this basic service better? What can we do? The big idea is to deliver basic service in 3-layer top process. Right at the top is the ministries, and the ministries should set standards across the board. At the bottom should be basic service retail delivery, whatever works. NGOs, churches, public sectors, and local communities. They should get their money from the middle, which I call public agency, the implementing agency. And who will run this implementing agency? It will be co-run by donors and government. They will take mutual responsibility in financing and running this organization. Financing this organization. What's the advantage of this? It will bring accountability to the NGOs. Right at the moment, NGOs are not accountable. Think of the money that's been raised for Somalia. It's been raised by adverse images of poverty and crisis. And people who are donating don't know if the NGOs are good or bad. Therefore, we need a professional assessment of NGOs' performance. It will bring accountability and coordination. So what do I need from you? I need ambassadors to do 3 things. 1, I need ambassadors from fragile states who will say, we don't want the European 1950 model. We want to build our organization based on our society today, the 21st century, not the 50s. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has changed tremendously. And I'm afraid to tell you, this is the new face of Africa. We're young, we're educated, we're motivated, we're vibrant, and most importantly, we want prosperity. Therefore, we don't want to go back to 1950s where we worry about if the Europeans are going to deliver the basic service. We can do it, so give us a chance, and I need people to make noise. 2, I need ambassadors from the NGO communities who will say, we are not afraid of accountability. We are willing to be scrutinized, because if we are doing a good job, we want to scale it up rather than running a boutique. And finally, I need ambassadors from the international community who will say we don't want to do business as usual, because business as usual has left us with images that I started with: inadequate, miserable services. Thank you very much. I wasn't sure about the time, so.
Go ahead.